friends. My name is Anuj Singhal. I'm the founder of CXO TV, a web channel from Tech Plus Media Group. And today I'm really excited to spend the next 1 hour learning with you all. And, we are witnessing to this unprecedented time from the lockdown to virtual meetings, from layoff to mandatory work from office, from changing tactics of sales to that of marketing. While all the organization, whether it's large or small, are trying really hard to reduce the impact of COVID-19. And so are a different unit of theirs, be it operations, be it finance, sales and marketing. But I think, the expectations are really high from the marketing to wave the magic wand. With this, I just open up the webinar titled Marketing Shift in the Time of Corona by thanking each one of you. I can tell you that next 1 hour will going to be really exciting with these exceptional panelists we have. Let me introduce my panelists to you. My first panelist is Meenu Bagla. She comes with 2 decades of experience in technology industry, 7+ years of experience on global marketing and strategy, leadership role for multi-dollar brands. She's committed to the cause of environment, education and women empowerment, and is actively driving multiple initiatives in professional and personal capacity. My second panelist, Prasannajit Roy, has more than 2.5 decades of experience on business, an accomplished and dynamic strategic marketing and strategic specialist. He's a council member and a mentor to NASSCOM 10,000 Startup Program and council member of CII. Currently, he's serving as Senior Executive Vice President and CMO of NTT NetMagic. My third panelist is Ravi Shankar. Ravi comes with 2 decades of marketing and ideation experience across entertainment and real estate industry. He's engaged with Infinity Group as CMO headquartered in Kolkata, actively engaged in real estate and hospitality sector. Let me start with the lady in the room. Meenu, as you know that India, seems to have suppressed the curve so far. It looks that we might have escaped the worst of the pandemic, but still we need to be cautious. There is a possibility of a W curve. So how do you see the outbreak of COVID-19, impacting the market and the marketers at this point?
Very interesting question, Anuj. And it's pretty much like asking somebody who's in the middle of the hurricane that, what's going to be the insurance cost post-hurricane? And I truly believe I'm too small and underinformed to make a decisive comment on impact of COVID-19 on markets. I think governments, WHO, IMF have all been trying, with their real numbers, statistics, insight into the current situation. And we are mere recipients of what media is throwing at us on a daily basis. Clearly, this is not an economic crisis. This is not a political crisis. This is just not a financial crisis, right? I think we are seeing a crisis, which is the human crisis of its own kind. And what I know for sure is that it is far more powerful than 2008. It's far more lethal than 9/11. And it's far more far-reaching than the Great Depression. And if I go by just the numbers that's being shared by some of the most credible institutions of the world and not being fooled by the bullish markets, I would say it looks pretty gloomy right now, although we seem to be, making roads ahead in kind of conquering the social distancing game. I mean, IMF said today, right, that the global economy will shrink by 1%. 500 million job losses, 2.2 million cases and still rising. India has in fact seen the largest spike in the cases in the last 24 hours. We are talking about 200 countries impacted, 100 nations have blocked their doors. And Silicon Valley, the so-called silver lining in the sky, has always seen 200+ startups closing in the last 30 days. I mean, our favorite brands like Airbnb or Marriott are looking at 10% utilization. They have never, ever seen in their history. And Boeing, I mean, I just read yesterday, Boeing is asking for $60 billion relief from the government. And among all of this, if we look at IT industry, which probably is the farthest reaching industry from India, which is very export oriented, is not spared as well. I think we are very, very early on to even gauge the numbers and the revenue impact. But clearly, all of us can see that it's impacting big time. In a nutshell, I think it doesn't matter in which industry are we, whether you're in BFSI or manufacturing or technology or in logistics. I think you're equally hit. However, there's a silver lining. I think brands like P&G and Unilever seem to be actually expanding and doing the inorganic and organic expansion. So while we are in the middle of this whole gloom and doom situation, I still see that there's a huge silver lining for marketers. And we'll discuss a little bit more about it in our discussion down the lane. But yes, it's not a great picture right now.
Okay. So thanks, Meenu. That was really insightful. So now I just want to bring in Prasanjit. Prasanjit, what's your take on this? How would you say, the impact of the market, over COVID-19 and how it's affecting the marketers?
Hi, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. I fully concur with what Meenu said. In fact, I just like to add on one dimension. It's on the timelines. Okay. So I would say that this is for a long haul. Long haul, not only in the term of when we are seeing the end of this Corona or COVID-19, I'm talking about a timeline when we can see normalcy coming back. So I was fortunate to attend a webinar of Dun & Bradstreet, and they have outlined some great pandemics or disruptions Meenu spoke about. I'll just take one example for you to understand. So they're talking about a financial meltdown, and they're talking about a time taken for things to come back to normalcy. And the financial meltdown, they had talked about 5 years. And as Meenu said rightly, this is far more lethal than the financial meltdown. So we can very well imagine what is the timeline we're talking about till everything comes back to normalcy, till we have the sentiments of business, individuals, and everyone restored. So that is something that we need to be cognizant about. This Black Swan event has really forced organizations to bring about a sea change in the way they plan, operate, and conduct their business. So it's an opportunity. I put it into 3 phases. Okay, that's how we are doing it. First phase is respond. Second phase is reset, and third phase is rebound. Okay, so these are the 3 phases I think we need to work in. I'll talk about the respond phase first, which has got 4 nuggets. Okay, so first is providing the continuity of service. Okay, whatever line of business you are, you should continue providing the service. Like for example, why we are into data centers, continuity of service in hosted infrastructure, cloud, hybrid, managed services. For that, we have a critical core team that is doing this work. Second is protecting and enabling your own people, which is very, very important. So we were fortunate enough, since we had our offices across the world, we could see it coming way around first week of March. And by the mid of first week of March, we took a call that 85 to 90% of employees are going to work from home. Okay, so we were 2 weeks ahead than the normal closures that came in from the government. The third one, which is very important, is helping the clients to respond to COVID. I think this is very, very critical. What are we doing to help them to respond to COVID? Okay, so be it in terms of a reach out, be it in terms of your doing something that will enable them to come back to a state where they can conduct their business. And the fourth one, which is sharing of best practices. As a corporate social citizen, not only of the country, but of the region or the world arena where we play, how are you leveraging your experience and experts around the world to share best practices? Okay, so that is something which would enable them to come back to a state of normalcy. And lastly, before I wind up for the time being, I would like to say the one most important element that we inadvertently ignored at this critical time is the aspect of communication. Communication with customers, communication with business partners or with alliance partners, and communication with employees.
I definitely agree and resonate with you, in terms of the communication. I think all the stakeholders and in fact, the leadership team need to, keep the communication going. And with this, I'll just bring in Ravi as well.
I would like to add upon the conceptual framework of this situation where we are in, because the numbers are still coming and we really don't know that where it will end up. So a lot of speculation is there in the air. But having said that, if we can draw some conceptual framework to understand the crisis, where we are. So classically, this can be seen as a capex boom cycle that turns to burst and derails the expansion in any economy. Severe exogenous demand supply shock in the event of war, disaster, and disruption pushes the economy into contraction. And it's here that pandemic has infected and inflicted the most. Coming to the question, the impact of COVID-19 on market, we shall examine the transmission mechanism through which the health crisis infects the economy. And there are three plausible transmission channels which we can underline. The first one is the indirect hit to the confidence. So as markets fall and household wealth contracts, the household saving rate moves up and thus consumption must fall, which is the most alarming and critical aspect in the times to come. So for India, there is still a breathing space for the only reason that in the developing economy where, or rather in the developed economy where household exposure to the equity asset class is high, this is going to impact most, unlike to India. The second part is the direct hit to consumer confidence. So when financial market performance and consumer confidence correlate strongly, long-run data shows that consumer confidence can drop even when markets are up. So COVID-19 appears to be potentially potent direct hit on confidence globally as well as in our country. So however, we are a little better positioned in terms of the containment and the overall life losses which has happened. I'm talking in a global perspective. So we are still having a bit of advantageous position. So though there will be a differential impact of direct hit on consumer confidence, where a speculative market may take its own due time to recover, but the asset class will maintain and manage the balance, what I see. The third is the supply side shock. So whenever two channels are demand shock, there is additional transmission risk via supply disruption. So as the pandemic shuts down production and disables the critical components of supply chain, the gap turns into a problem. And relative to demand impact, we see this as a secondary thing here. Now, the second aspect or the second dimension to giving the framework to this crisis is something which is of a sort of horror term which has come to our discussion, that is the recession. We don't like to really pronounce it because we are really scared of it, but the fact is what it is. So if you look at recession in a historical perspective, they are predominantly cyclical in nature, not structural. And yet the boundary can be blurred this time. So could COVID-19 create its own structural legacy at the level of overall economy? That is to be seen. And the answer is really yes. So how global economy and market will likely to, differ in number of significant ways. One legacy which we see possibly coming in times to come is the microeconomic legacy. So this unfolds in adoption of new technology and business models. If you remember, SARS outbreak of 2003 is credited with the adoption of online shopping in China, and this also accelerated the growth of Alibaba over there. Education sector has already started showing its shift towards online tools and e-learning modules. Health sector has promptly responded by developing AI-based diagnostic methods and attending patients through the online medium. Fortunately, I have downloaded one app which is of, I think, some hospital chain. They were saying that they have so far consulted around 50,000 patients through the app. This is quite unheard of in a country like India. So this is the microeconomic legacy which I see way forward unfolding in the post-COVID world. And the second is the macroeconomic legacy. In this dimension, it appears it will happen the progress of a more decentralized global value chain. This is very, very important because here is an opportunity for India. And Indian market, due to its sheer size and the positioning, there is a probability that there will be a shift towards India with a more reliable, democratic and stable institutions when you talk of the other Asian countries. And this will really be a positive outcome if this happens. And I think government has started giving indication towards making this shift happen at the policy level, at the level of international diplomacy as well. So this is how I see it. The third aspect is, again, because see, as you see across the globe, virus has put all the kind of political systems at test. So certainly down the line, December, we are going to see election happening in US. So the other, countries and their political systems will be certainly assessed that how do they cope up with this whole crisis which virus has put across. So that is another legacy which probably down the lane this COVID-19 is going to see. So this is what is my perception. But I would really abstain myself giving any very factual direction to it, because as I said that we are really amidst it. So all we can do is that we can understand into certain theoretical perspective with some historical understanding, and we can cope up as the day unfolds before us. So that's probably the best way to look at it.
Prasanjit, before we get into the finer details, how would you see the bigger picture evolving? You might want to share your contribution from your exposure from CII and NASSCOM.
Sure. Thanks, Anuj. So let me take a reference here. So a global industry analyst body, Anuj, had predicted the impact of COVID on certain key industries. Okay, so there will be a net positive impact on certain industries. Okay, let me list it down. So one would be ICT, the other would be e-commerce, online gaming, e-education, OTT media, energy, personal care, transformational healthcare, and so on and so forth. Let me pick up the ICT industry, okay, as an example. And we are seeing it ourselves because we come from the space. We are not going out of the market seeking business, okay? And I see a spike. I'll cover that subsequently. I see a spike in certain areas, be it bandwidth, be it cloud security, be it DR, disaster recovery, okay? So the elements that are going to go up personally in the ICT are cloud and business networks, okay? Digital enterprise and digital media, mobile and wireless, IoT. So these are our net positive gains that this industry is going to have moving forward. So exactly as Ravi said, there are certain industries or certain elements or certain segments that are going to benefit out of this, okay? Talking about the industry body, I know you talked about, I think, let me give an example with NASSCOM, since I am quite tied up with them for many years and decades. So I work with them as a part of the corporate and be a part of a lot of councils, be it the regional councils or be it the sales and marketing council. And I think NASSCOM represents more than 3,000 companies in this space, okay? And they have industry councils and regional councils to take care of all the segments across the country. And they were actually taking a very proactive step on behalf of the industry, okay? I'll give you some initiatives that they can and which really helped our cause. One is they were with the government, the state governments, as well as central governments and Ministry of Home Affairs in inclusion of certain key sectors and essential services, which is very, very critical. Because, for example, I spoke about in the earlier Anujas, we are into data centers and we cater to more than 2,000 customers. Our data center has to be on always. If it's not on, 2,000 companies would come down, okay? So, we had to have a critical mass within the data centers, operate out of the data centers, okay? So some of the key things NASSCOM taken, like data centers, ISPs, IT and ITS services, well, part of essential services. Second, they made a representation to the Department of Telecommunication DOT, okay, to relax the work from home conditions under other service providers regime. Normally, they are very, very stringent in that, okay? So that was something that NASSCOM pushed. Exemption of IT and ITS industry to support essential mission critical functions. Okay, we got that incorporated by talking to the ministry and MHA. Third is also, and it's very, very important because a lot of those industries are under STPI units, okay? So we made a presentation to the Central Board of Indirect Taxes, Director General of Export Promotion, to ease the process of movement of equipments. Because one of the key things that happen is if it's a big company, Anuj, many of the employees do not have laptops. And when you're saying a 90% of the people to go and work from WFH mode, they don't have a laptop, so you have to take their desktop, and that would require movements of goods and services and human resources. So we have to ensure that those are cleared, because when the lockdown was announced, it came as a shock to everyone. Then the last thing is focusing on ensuring the need for business continuity for not only the IT and big mid-market players, but also the small, medium, and micro, okay, and startups, and also ensure that there's adequate cash flows, access to the working capitals, as well as measures that enable enterprises to scale down on operational costs and retain employment at this critical time. So these are some of the measures that NASSCOM took, and are constantly in touch with corporate bodies. So they have these different councils where they get a lot of requests. Sometimes maybe on a company basis, sometimes could be a basis of the segment, and then we take it up with a particular industry or with the government, etc., and make some amendments to the entire guidelines or policies that are issued from time to time.
Thank you, Prasannajit. I would love to see, the recommendation, relaxation on work from home from NASSCOM. So probably I'll connect with you offline on this. And with this, I'll just move down to the next question. So my next question is to Ravi. Ravi, how critical it is to prioritize your focus on retaining the existing customers? Do you think this will be the marketing strategy over next 12 months over acquiring the new customers?
Anuj, indeed, yes. Existing customer has a great asset value. Earlier, even it was there, but now when the market is difficult and acquisition of new customer is becoming very difficult, then certainly it's critical for any business enterprise to at least hold its own customer base. However, since revenue loss is substantial, in these times, dwindling to almost nothing, we will see two directions of strategic responses to this crisis. Normally, you will see one set of organizations and functionalities going on the reactive path, and another will be on the proactive path. I see at the level of strategy, primarily three different kind of strategies which will emerge out of this situation. We are also looking forward to adopt along the same line. The first strategy is where same product being offered through different channels. This is the first proactive business response post-crisis, is to offer the product and services through an online channel. Earlier it has been there, but this will happen more aggressively by digitization of the physical product, or in the case of services through a technology mediated delivery solution. To put it in a perspective, the Chinese cosmetic company Lin Xingzuan was forced to close 40% of its sales, including all of its location in Wuhan. The company redeployed its beauty advisors as online influencers.
Okay.
You won't believe, on Valentine's Day, Lin launched a large-scale live stream shopping event featuring more than 100 beauty advisors. One advisor sale in just 2 hours, Anuj, equal to that of 4 retail stores. And the company's fab sales climbed 120% over last year. Again, why I'm giving this reference, because China is the only economy which is coming to the path of recovery. So we have to look at the examples from that part of the world. Mm-hmm. The second is the Nike story. Again, in China, Nike staff engaged with the Chinese consumer digitally by offering at-home workouts. And between December 2019 and end of Feb 2020, Nike reported more than 35% growth in its online sales in Greater China over the same period previous year. So as more and more people will restrain their casual physical movement outside their homes, it will continue to be a contact, communicate, and convince them through online channels for various products and services. So strategically, this is one shift which is going to push almost all industries. Just to give you a perspective in the industry where I operate, real estate industry, we have been doing extensive digital marketing in last lockdown period, the ongoing lockdown period rather. And our CPL and queries have almost risen by 200%. The level of engagement which we are getting through the customer has gone really up. So this is one part of it. The second part of the strategy is where the same infrastructure can have different products. Now, please see that pandemic is dampening the demand for many products and services, resulting in an underutilization of organizational infrastructure across. Now, to put this strategy in a perspective, as soon as it became clear that hand sanitizer was a short supply worldwide, companies in perfume making, in alcoholic beverages, etc., they shifted their entire production line to this sanitizer business. So that's one movement. Similarly, Ford officially has already modified their idle production line to manufacture ventilators. With sales of car in China down by 90%, automotive giant of China, BID company, switched to producing millions of surgical face masks per week. Again, that was not from his production line, but still they got into it. Hotel chains of Best Western and Hilton, again, the worst impacted. They have pivoted their offering to their room to the hospital staff and the patients in UK. On the third line of the strategy, as I see that the same product with a different infrastructure might turn around. Suddenly struggling to meet the demand for their products and services. Some companies need to quickly augment their infrastructure to increase, in some cases, production and in some cases, delivery capacity. This is inevitable, Online platforms have already started absorbing the workforce displaced from the different industries. So we will see that there will be a sort of sharing economy which will come, the way it has been there into the transportation industry. The bottom line is that leadership across functions and industries shall opt for a proactive approach rather than reactive mode at a strategic level to meet the challenge. It's time to be a bit more responsible, As a group, I can tell you that this is a really difficult time for all of us. And we really need to get on our responsible note when we are addressing a crisis or addressing any situation for that matter, because this is not something which has got any historical reference point for any of us, So the only way to probably deal with it is being responsible, not only towards ourselves or our organization, rather at our larger responsibility, which we share at the level of society. And things will probably, come out healthy and better.
I just want to thank you for a lot of use cases around and from China, especially at a time when there is an economic backlash against China. And so that's on a very lighter note. So my one thing which I just wanted to add was seeing the changing landscape. It's the time for the brands to actually demonstrate the care by putting up the customers at the center of their story instead of the product. And by doing this, they need to bring a lot of empathy around. So with this, I'll just move down to the next question for Meenu. Meenu, my next question is, how marketers should navigate the current crisis?
Well, Anuj, I'm no marketing guru. I think we're all learning as we go. But the 5-point agenda that I have put for myself and what I have seen is working very well is, first and foremost, the recommendation to marketers: take off your marketing hat and put everybody else's for a day. What would you do if you are the CFO of the company? What would you do if you're the chief people officer of the company, right? Put yourself in the rainmaker's hat and see what's the impact that you can make on the ground. So I think that's the first recommendation, because it makes your perspective, it makes your plan, it makes your strategy far more complete and total, right? I think the second, the operating word for marketers' success today, especially during COVID-19, Anuj, that I see is extra. And what I mean by here is you got to be extra communicative to all your stakeholders. You're no longer a brand and advertising and a marketing person anymore, right? You got to be extra communicative to your internal stakeholders, to your partners, to customers, to community, to governments, right? And to industry bodies. That's the only way we will get through it together. I think the second lever here is to be extra conscious. I mean, I'm seeing some of the marketers in this whole enthusiasm to still market and sell, they are not very sensitive. So you got to be extra sensitive, extra caring of your customer's context, right? The problem of your customer sitting in an auto industry in Spain might be very different from somebody who's a design firm in Italy. I think you need to respond, you need to care, you need to engage differently. That's the second. And the other extra word is you cannot be any more extra collaborative than today. Whether you're collaborating with your own customers or community or partners or media for that matter, I think this is the time to be extra collaborative. And we have seen this, work very well for even brands like a Wipro or a Tech Mahindra, right? And I'll give you a case in point of the larger Mahindra group, how they are doing this very well. But before that, I think the third important point for us marketers is serve better now so that you're able to sell better tomorrow. There is no way you should get into a sell mode right now and look for an immediate ROI. That's not going to happen, right? Especially not in the B2B space, maybe in few industries that Prasad and Ravi pointed out, but not in B2B space. And I think one point that Ravi mentioned very clearly is retain customers with empathy, engagement, and experience, especially for a B2B industry where I come from, in technology. I think except for healthcare, work tech, and collaboration software, nobody in B2B industry is buying, right? And thankfully, the so-called technology industry has, driven by 98 to almost 99% of repeat customer. So the agenda today is to serve the customer and not sell to the customer. And last point, which I think we are seeing very, very beautifully being done by most of the technology brands and B2B brands is give, 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 and give more. I mean, I can tell you from my analysis on digital and social media that even for a $8 billion brand like Wipro, Rishad's comment on Wipro kitchen feeding 2 lakh migrant laborers in the last 30 days got him far more admiration than any piece of insight or thought leadership paper. I think that's a very, very beautiful example of what is the community looking at, because even your B2B customer is a human being. He's part of a community, right? And the good news for marketers, while I talked about the whole gloomy situation around us, the Google and the Twitter research says that 64% of the users today globally are still looking for brands to advertise. And 70% of them want the brands to advertise to them through boosting positivity and sharing positive stories. So if you're not doing that, I think that is a disservice to our customers than to probably just stay quiet, right? And how would you do that? I think this is the time where digital media comes to your saving, right? Most of us B2B marketers who have spent 35 to 40% of our marketing budgets in doing gala events and shows and conferences, we have realized, that's gone poof in the air. And, but it's an amazing blessing in disguise, because today I can reach out to an Anuj at his home at those times of the day with the messages that I want him to consume, right? And if I show that I care, he will consume that content. So I think digital media is coming out to be a huge blessing for the marketers we are looking at. Clearly, even when you're looking at, live events making a digital push, I think where we are, I would say in a level of maturity of 1 to 5, we are still in level 2. We have figured out how to orchestrate so-called digital events. But I think in order for our events to be very highly interactive and engaging, experiential, we still have a little mile to go to make it through AR, VR, through through virtual interactions and so on and so forth. So I think that's where the digital engagement agenda would come into picture. And the case in point is actually, for me, it's at home. The Mahindra Group has done a phenomenal job, right from the chairman of the company to employees, on doing all 5 of the things that I've talked about, Anju. Anand Mahindra is on social media and responding to public queries without any disintermediation, without any PR exercise. Mahindra factories have been turned into ventilator units, correct? The Pininfarina so-called design lab team, which were there here in India, they're actually designing, a new concept for, low-cost ventilators. They have literally, converted their factories into mask making factories, correct? And everybody, I think the amount of contribution that Mr. Mahindra and his team is doing, not just to the Indian economy and the Indian community, but to all the countries that he operates in, is a beautiful example of that humanity, heart, and humor will never go out of fashion. Never. So that's what I would say is my marketer's take on this.
Adding a purpose to the brand is something which is very important. And thanks for putting it so beautifully, Meenu. So I'll just bring in Prasanjit once again. Prasanjit, my next question to you is, do you see the marketing team facing the budgetary cut, and how would they cope up with that? And what should they focus at this point in time?
Yeah, thanks, Anuj. Anuj, it's inevitable that the marketing budget will come down because a sizable part of it goes into your physical events, as Meenu was talking about. Okay, so all your big conferences, etc., you keep on doing it, or regional conferences that you have once in a month or once in 2 months. So it takes a lot of your expenses. So obviously, I think the areas where the marketing budget will come down and we need to curb on the discretionary spend are, the physical events, the big sporting events where we sponsor some of them, paid advertisement. Okay, when I fully echo what Meenu said, advertisements need not pushing your pictures across. It could be in terms of narratives, what you have done in this hour. Okay, bring out the human element and empathy that you have done. So, those could be done, but not the paid advertisement part of it. And then any non-essential communication agencies or contractors, something like that, that can easily be done away for the time being. I think the need of the hour is pivoting to digital. I fully concur what Meenu was saying. So one of the key things that we are doing right now is basically have peer group sessions. Okay, so listen to them, listen what they have to share. Sometimes we're so busy, doing inside out approach that we forget what the pains and what they're going through. So we have formed to get around 5 or 10 of the CIOs or CISOs or infra heads, and we listen to them. What is the main concern? What are the 3 most concerns on the table that they're grappling with, and how we can help them and serve them? So these peer group sessions are really coming out very well, where we understand them better. And then they represent the entire community. Okay, so they are not only talking about themselves, they talk about the entire community. So which helps us to address it much better. Digital events where we talk about interactive workshops, okay, which is basically a variant of the physical event. So we have this different tracks, we have this workshops, we have case studies, etc. And the other point which we need to use, again, I fully echo what Meenu said, was using the social media. What we need is proactive but very sensitive engagement on the social media. These are some of the tools that will come in so handy in today's world. How are we leveraging it and getting the bang out of the buck for all this? In addition, there are webinars and there are the other elements that we can always reach out as a part of the GTM. The other point which I think needs attention right now is each of the team members of marketing, and be it for other functions, need to leverage this time that they've got. So I'm talking about upskilling and reskilling of team members, because each of us on an average are saving around 3 hours of the commute time. In Bombay, it may be more than that. Those 2 to 3 hours, how are you effectively utilizing? Why don't you pick up a new trade? Why don't you pick up a new subject or do an extension of what you know? Because tomorrow's world will call for a bit of more qualities and a bit of more professional abilities than currently what you are doing. Because the world post-COVID is not going to be the same as the world pre-COVID. How are we geared up for that? there's a lot of feedback which we are getting from the market. I talked about it the last time, and I think just give you some examples, Anuj. So some figures I have with me is, you know, though putting to my industry, and I can tell you in the last couple of months, we've seen an increased volume because that's how the world is moving. So if you're talking about a bandwidth usage, or if I'm talking about a cloud usage in terms of VMs consumed, or a cloud security or disaster recovery on cloud, you'll be astonished to know that there's been 15 to 20% increase in volumes, and those are not our pushing it. This is coming from the client part of it. So see, there's a serious change of people moving from a physical asset-based model to moving to a virtual space. Other thing that we are doing, Anuj, right now, especially with my team, is we are doing a lot of marketing programs which are theme-based. So we picked up relevant themes that resonates with the relevant and are contextual in nature. And this has got a very, very good positive impact. Like, for example, there's a theme which could be something on IT modernization, IT infra modernization. So how do you build always available, managed and secure IT infrastructure? Okay. So availability of business applications and communications services all the time, especially during unforeseen times as this COVID-19. Okay. Uh, what has come under the spotlight in this pandemic is that these are some of the least impact areas. And if we can quickly reconfigure this, then we will be able to serve our customers far, far better remotely. How can you quickly reconfigure your IT infrastructure that allows for data centers, cloud to deliver, employees to access securely and remotely and do the transactions online? So these are some of the available technologies that we are leveraging to create an infrastructure that would minimize the impact in disaster situation like this. And these themes, when we have an outreach program, these are really lapped up by the consumers. That is what they're facing right now. So theme-based approach is something that is really going into their particular pain points, addressing their needs, and they're coming out with something. Yes, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been expecting this for the last so many weeks. And lastly, before I wind up, Anuj, I think this is very, very important. We need to focus on the morale, health, and wellness of our team members. This is tough times. People are working from home. This is not work from home. This is work at home included. Times are stretched. It starts up from 9 in the morning, and when I'm like my team members are also part of this global team, it goes on till 9, 10 in the night. So it's talking about 10, 12 hours a day. So this is the time we need to focus on the morale, health, and wellness. How are they faring? It needs communication. It needs one-to-one sort of mentoring at times. It needs to have some wellness programs. It needs to have some meditation programs, because after all, human beings at this critical hour are all subject to a lot of pressure. On one side, we're looking after the community, it's fine. But the people who are doing this, it's like the healthcare workers who are working in this. So this team of people who are working for the clients are also on the front line. How are they faring? Is there any issues or not? We need to be cognizant of the fact. And sometimes we overlook that aspect and keep on pushing or the envelope or thinking that the needle needs to be pushed towards consumer end. That is needed, but don't I think if you're doing something with neglecting your employees, I think that's a very highly dangerous thing that we should be doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think morale building is something very important, and thanks for putting it so nicely. With this, I'll just move down to my next question, and my next question is for Ravi. Ravi, how can AI and analytics be better leveraged to make marketing engine more targeted and productive?
There is interestingly a report I was going through yesterday, McKinsey Global Research, that has estimated the use of AI will add as much as $13 trillion to global GDP by 2030. This is quite an interesting figure to look at. So going and looking into the impact of machine learning or big data analytics or AI, please see the non-economic benefits to humankind will be equally important by using these tools, leading to a world that is safer. And when I'm saying safer, that means by reducing the destructive human errors, and it can offer people a better quality of life. There is no doubt about it, by reducing the time they take or spend on tedious tasks such as driving and shopping. So these technological, gametes are going to play really, really very crucial role in times to come. However, there is already been a conflict which was going on, because this is not new. I mean, AI or big data analytics or machine learning has already been gradually evolving into the larger marketplace and has been trying to test its water into different economies. So here I would like to put it in a perspective that there has been a sort of reaction towards adoption of this technology into the larger sentiment. And at this psychological standpoint of humankind, the perceived threat that people feel is likely to worsen, because the technological innovation will accelerate in times to come. And autonomous devices will move into the area of the customer lives. So whereas the mindset of people to prove that men are still men and they are not the keys of the piano, so that resistance is very much in place, that mistrust is very much in place. So whether in marketing or any other function of business, technology has to meet the litmus test of customers' affinity and trust. So as I see that, first and foremost, way forward, safeguarding the customer's individuality will be one of the key concerns for technology and people behind the technology, including ourselves in the marketing function. The second aspect, safeguarding customers' freedom not to be predictable, because when we put too much of machine learning and AI-based operations into the system, it tends to make certain predictability towards an individual, which nobody really likes. It's moreover feels like an intrusion. And the third most important aspect into the developing economies like India, where the technological footprint and the digital footprint is still evolving, is safeguarding the customer's privacy. For the developed world, people are really sensitized towards it. We really don't know that which data goes where and how does it impact to our day-to-day life. So this is really going to be very, very difficult task, because at one side of it, technology will be a compulsion. It will actually get into every walk of life. And at the other side of it, the level of awareness, the level of sensitivity, the level of knowingness to the uses of technology is not very much in place into a developing economy like India. I'm talking about the larger population. So this will be a little difficult exercise between the market and the consumer, which will be interesting to see that how does it evolve. Besides, in terms of, if I talk about particularly in terms of leveraging these three elements, certainly one aspect is the lead scoring and predictive analysis, which is going to be an exciting area to explore in times ahead, because the digital footprint and exposure is rising, and this is bounded to scale up in times ahead. So number of queries naturally will rise. So marketing team can well analyze their existing database and prospects using AI. They can identify the prospects, most likely leads, which can convert into sales, so that that can be put across to the best efforts. AI in the presence of existing data and behavioral input also may help to identify lookalike consumers, customers in marketplace, which so far has been seen only into the Facebook marketing. The second aspect is you can enhance a lot of your engagement with the customer through automated email conversations by putting AI into place. Third is the customer insight. Recently I have been seeing that AI products have also become increasingly adept at analyzing unstructured data, which is very, very important. So like images, videos, audios, So as I see on AI software, transcribing and analyzing all content can provide an insight on how to better serve a customer and increase the workforce productivity. So the last part can be that personalizing with lot of data. Until recently, the amount of personal data we know about our customer is very much limited to the broader categories, like what organization the customer belongs to, or what is the demography or industry which he belongs to. Way forward, by putting big data analytics into the right perspective, I think we can have a lot more deeper learning about our customers. Last part, which has been quite the creative domain for marketers so far, is being penetrated by AI and machine learning. That is called content creation. So just to bring to your understanding, Netflix has been very, very extensively using this since quite some time, where they have more than 3,000 parameters to assess the narrative or the storyline, along which they assess. And the creative people into this new age has been interacting with those parameters. Gone are those days, when a person used to sit in some solace and silo and think about some nice story. Now there is a very well crafted machine learning and AI into place. When you submit your story to Netflix, then Netflix comes back to you and says that, see, we have done this much of million audience data analytics based upon age. This part of the plot should go in this direction. It should be like this. The character should behave like this. So what I'm trying to say that the most important and exclusive part which marketers have been holding close to their heart, which is the content creation, you will see that there also there will be an increasing participation of AI and big data analytics for sure.
Thank you, Ravi. I think the essence of, or in fact, the adoption of AI is meant to improve the customer experience, and thanks for putting it so well. My next question is for Prasanjit. Prasanjit, during this interim crisis, the marketers need to re-architect their GTM strategy, putting more emphasis around the digital messaging. What's your suggestion to the community?
Thanks, Anuj. Anuj, if you recall, I had started off my discussion talking about the 3 phases. I have spoken about response, I've spoken about reset, where you need to pause and recalibrate in the previous answer. And now is the final one, which is the rebound phase, okay, which obviously timelines will be much more pronounced in this. So what we need to do in this phase, Anuj, is basically look at new product proposition mix, okay, which will embed with a lot of emerging technologies, high value services that needs to resonate in this new normal, okay. We need to work with the product teams because we are the ones who are connected both on the external world as well as in the internal. So we can get fillers and insights from the market, okay, what is working well and what is not working well and what is the need of the hour. So that is one. Second, marketing needs to play a very larger role than just normal marketing. I fully agree with what Minu said sometime. Put on different hats. You obviously needs to do that and go beyond the effort. Okay. Second, with strategy, which is going to be my new markets, which is going to be in a new product lines. How do I go and enter those markets? How do I align myself with ecosystem marketing, work with industry bodies and average the larger community in general? Okay. So you go beyond your normal defined contours of marketing role that you've been playing till now. Move beyond that, break the shackles and move out. The other one is identify the corporate age. Okay, which is the age that you're having served so well, having been able to steer your ship within these troubled waters. Find out your age. That will give you a lot of differentiation. And the other one which I want to add on is programmatic ad buying, okay, where you use the help of algorithms, machine, etc. And a large dose of personalization need to be thrown in. People who have the capital and the resilience in the rebound phase, they can resort to programmatic ad buying, a lot of personalization been thrown in, and then be specific, do specific segments of the market, do a lot of personalized messages and reach out to the ones whom you need to, rather than doing a carpet bombing and spraying. My suggestion to the community, Anuj, is basically I've got 3 things that I need to call out, okay, in this new normal scenario. One is focus on helping your clients. Help clients, facing teams engage with the clients every week. Build out your nurture journeys for critical PCP propositions. Ensure that the critical services you are supposed to deliver is on. Listen to the clients and the segments, what they have to say. what the pain they're going through, and build up new stories, build up narratives that resonates to not only to the clients, narrative that will resonate to the prospects and suspects. That is very, very critical. Keep that engine going. The second bucket, shift execution to digital. Enable clients and employee facing teams to engage through all the digital channels possible. Be obsessed about the intent data. Feed all your corporate channels. And as I said before, proactive but sensitive engagement on social. Do not send out just communications which are lifeless and cold. Make phone calls or video calls. Try to build the connect, which is very, very critical. And the last bucket is agility in roles. The role that each team member is doing or a particular team has been doing may not be the same going forward. There has to be a ruthless prioritization of tasks and focus, and this is inevitable. One has to be prepared for it. Move teams from their normal set pattern to areas of high demand, and that is where I was talking about your skilling, reskilling, upskilling will come in. The situation may change. As a general, you need to marshal your forces depending on the needs are. Okay, so be prepared. Your workforce and your soldiers are well trained to take over any new role. Take time to think about the process and the ways of working. Okay, we need to be a change in the process. It's the right time to affect that particular change. So these are some of the things I need to leave behind for the community to think about. But these are the three main nuggets, Anuj, which I think they need to focus going forward.
Well, friends, in the interest of the time, I'll just go to take this last question that's there for Meenu. Meenu, changing the conversation like B2B messaging during and after COVID-19 is very important. So what's your take on that?
I would say the B2B marketers need to pivot to B2C marketing. And the C here is not consumer or customer. The C here is the okay. Enterprise businesses that are showing empathy towards community, micro community, macro communities are going to be the brands that are going to remain in your hearts. And I can tell you from my own experience that if you're a brand that can win hearts today, you are in a better position to change minds tomorrow. Okay, because that's what people are going to remember, which brands are with them during tough times. And as Prasenjit pointed out, I think the second biggest thing would be for B2B marketers is conservation of your tactical budgets and reassess your current situation. Your customer is not buying right now. Don't waste your budgets. Don't waste your structure. Don't waste your time in selling products. You know, it's not going to happen right now. Okay. The other thing is, while all of us are so intertwined and struggling about dealing with the COVID-19, it's very important that we also spend some time, step back and look at the long-term growth strategy. What would you do when the times are going to be good and, we are in better times? What is your long-term construction strategy of brand, right? And that's where you would realize that you will have to put in all the tactical budgets that you save today into creating growth campaigns. I'll give an example. So for example, at Tech Mahindra, the first thing that we did after BCP and, moving the employee into remote workforce is ask the customers and created a community of customers where customers can learn from each other's experience. I mean, we assume that the customers want to live in silos. They don't. An automotive customer would love to hear what is an hospitality customer doing. A retail customer would love to hear what a healthcare customer is doing to deal with the situation. A large enterprise, a Fortune 500 company actually reached out and said, I would love to know what's your startup hub doing? How are they creating agile structures? I think this is the time for us to learn, reflect, and be ready for the future. That's in a nutshell what I would say, Anuj, is the messaging for B2B. And stay away from gimmicks. Don't spend money or time in gimmicks.
I think conservation of the resources is something very important. And with this, I just want to open up the floor for the questions.
Not every company is from this segment, right? So There are many companies trying to brick and mortar model, where running factories and they need people to be on the shop floor. So how these companies can sustain and keep the employment levels because of the challenge, and which kind of sectors or companies would be worst hit, and what should they do to counter it?
Yes, I understand. In fact, that's a problem that we have been dealing with. So when we have around 2,000 plus clients, not all of them come from the IT space. In fact, what we have done is we have segregated that particular industry as something which is media and internet centric. We call them MICE, and the other is non-internet centric companies. And obviously, they are at the different stages of the growth curve. So they will have challenges in terms of, one of the key things that they will challenges is everything is there in the shop floor. Everything is there as a part of a server or a physical asset. How do I quickly ramp up? How do I come back into a business continuity model? Okay. So where the whole thing that needs to do is there has to be a change of the business model. There has to be a change in the way you're functioning. Okay. And it's easier said than done, but there are where we can help you to move to a virtual world. You need to come across your entire IT operations at the back end to move to come back to a cloud model. You need to move some of your workload so that at least they can be continuing running. Because what has happened in this COVID, in fact, I'll take some cases where suddenly the offices got shut, okay, because there's been one case found. They were totally unprepared. Their entire infrastructure, their entire IT assets and servers, everything was stuck and locked. Before even the lockdown came into place, they couldn't do anything, and they're suffering badly. So going forward is how to have a business model, how to ensure that there is a BCP in place, not only for the entire business to go forward, but also in terms of say marketing or sales. So you should work in a model which is phygital, both a physical and digital. Have a play of both, and you need to build that up as you move forward. And that is the need of the hour. So one of the key things that COVID has taught all of us is we keep on talking about it in conferences, etc. We keep on looking at all those scenarios, but when it really hits us hard, that we realize that these are things we should have done. This was the need of the hour. So what we see as an industry is coming from the IT and the ITS and the info is there's going to be a sea change of how people are looking at their entire operations. People are looking at how the IT backbone needs to be tweaked for a pandemic like this, so that they don't get hit so badly that they are right now on the street, literally at at the mercy of such an event which has led them paralyzed and crippled. So I think the need of the hour is a change of the mindset. The need of the hour is to build up a module or a model business model, and the need of the hour to get the thinking process right.
What kind of changes we foresee in the typical KPIs for a marketing or digital company? And does parameters like NPS become all the more important now?
I think, as everything shifts, the KPI for any digital campaign in the short term would definitely shift. We are no longer looking at your so-called ROI or conversion as one of the KPI for any digital campaigns, right? I think the most quantitative that I have seen in most of the industries is the customer reach and engagement and response. I think that's about it. Of course, there are industries like the essential goods, right? The healthcare and collaboration technology firms that are seeing a huge upsurge in their NPS, right? They're seeing huge amount of improvement in conversion data. But clearly in the short term, don't even bother about an ROI in terms of conversion. Just focus on the sentiment, just focus on the positive response and engagement.
Try to win hearts. It will enable you to win minds. Okay. And if you go by simple logic, okay, that we have studied during school times, the consumers, the customers, they will remember your help at this hour. And that famous line, a friend in need is a friend indeed, that will keep on ringing in their minds when normalcy comes back.
Yep.
Absolutely, absolutely. Agree with you, Meenu and Prasanjit. So, one thing is that, every time when the market goes down by 20% or more, it roughly takes, 536 days to recover. And we don't know even how far the down will go and when the bottom line will be. So as a marketer, I think this is the time to double down. Don't be fearful when the others are afraid. And this pandemic is good, it's a good reminder, in fact, that is that it is much easier and less costlier, to market your existing customers versus acquiring your new customers. I think all the marketers need to capitalize on the power of digital. I think the marketers should bring more empathy in the customer service and should re-architect their strategy. I think this is the good time to bring back the brand ethos. Define the purpose of your brand to the customers, to the employees, and build strategic partner. One of the classic example which I just saw was all around the big basket and Uber aligning to deliver essential. Remember, the history is being written and we are witnessing it. Rewarded would be those who make it and make a mark during this time. On this positive note and wishes, I'm closing this thought-provoking webinar by once again thanking all my eminent panelists and the participants.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.